When Roger Federer said 8 simple words, the entire tennis world seemed to stop breathing. She is the future of world tennis. It was the kind of statement that lands like a thunderbolt, unexpected, powerful, and impossible to ignore. But what many people don't realize is that the story behind why he said it is even bigger than the quote itself. A 20-year-old girl from the Philippines, whose name much of the world struggled to pronounce just 2 years ago, was suddenly being pointed out by one of the greatest players in history as the sport's future. Before dismissing it as hype, consider this. What does it truly take to earn the blessing of a legend? The answer may completely change how you see Alex Eala. To understand why Federer's words carried so much weight, you first have to understand where Alex Eala came from and what she was told she could never become. The Philippines has never been known as a tennis powerhouse. That's not an insult. It's a reality every Filipino athlete with a racket has had to confront. In Southeast Asia, tennis has long been associated with privileged country clubs, satellite broadcasts of Wimbledon championships, and ambitious dreams that coaches sometimes quietly label as unrealistic. The nation has produced boxing icons and basketball heroes, resilient, unbreakable competitors but Grand Slam champions? That conversation had barely begun. Born on May 23, 2005, in Quezon City, Philippines, Alex Eala grew up far from the traditional centers of tennis power. As the daughter of businessman Mike Eala and Riza Eala, she carried not only her family's support but also the quiet weight of a nation unaccustomed to seeing itself on tennis's biggest stages. And yet, against the odds and expectations, she began carving a path that would eventually make even Roger Federer stop and take notice. Her mother, Riza Eala, a former national swimmer and longtime CFO of one of the Philippines' largest telecommunications companies, understood elite competition and discipline at the highest level. Her maternal grandfather, Bobby Maniego, was the one who first placed a racket in her hands when she was just 4 years old. That small moment on a quiet court in the Philippines would become the foundation of everything that followed. It was a grandfather's belief long before the world was ready that set the stage for something extraordinary. At just 13 years old, Alex Eala made a life-altering decision. She moved to Spain to train at the prestigious Rafael Nadal Academy, an institution founded by Rafael Nadal and known for producing some of the fiercest competitors in modern tennis. Imagine the weight of that transition. A teenager thousands of miles from home, navigating a new language, a new culture, and the relentless expectations of an academy built in a country where tennis greatness is not just admired, it is demanded. She graduated in 2023, but during those formative years, she was building far more than a polished forehand or a sharper backhand. She was forging mental armor, the kind that allows a player to step onto the biggest courts in the world without flinching. By 2022, the world received its first undeniable sign that this young athlete was different. At the US Open Junior Championships, 17-year-old Eala captured the girls' singles title, becoming the first Filipino in history to win a Grand Slam Junior Championship. In Manila, families gathered around their televisions in disbelief. Parents messaged their children. Tears were shed in living rooms across the country. For the first time in its modern sporting history, the Philippines had a true tennis champion to call its own. Yet a junior Grand Slam title is only the beginning of a much larger journey. It is the prologue, not the climax. The real story, the battle to translate promise into professional dominance, was only just beginning. Her early professional years were humbling. There were rankings stuck in the 200s, painful qualifying losses, and early exits in small ITF events that few people streamed and even fewer watched. It was the kind of grind that quietly breaks many promising juniors before they ever reach the bright lights of the main tour. In 2024, Alex Eala peaked around world number 143. Respectable, yes, but nowhere near the level that would spark conversations involving legends like Roger Federer. On paper, nothing screamed future face of tennis. But numbers rarely tell the whole story. What the rankings didn't capture was her foundation. She had been shaped at the Rafael Nadal Academy, absorbing the relentless mentality associated with Rafael Nadal himself. That work ethic wasn't just taught, it was embedded. Day after day, match after match, she kept building, even when the spotlight was nowhere in sight. Then came 2025 and everything changed. March. The Miami Open. One of the most prestigious hard-court tournaments in the world, just a tier below the Grand Slams in importance. The draw was loaded with established stars. The storyline seemed pre-written. Eala entered as a wild card, Ranked around number 140 in the world, a slot many assumed was given to attract Filipino fans rather than to introduce a genuine title threat. She was expected to be a feel-good story, not a disruptor. At first, nothing seemed extraordinary. She won her opening match. Wild cards do that sometimes. But in the second round, she stunned Yelena Ostapenko, a former French Open champion. Suddenly, people started paying attention. Then she defeated Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion. The whispers grew louder. Analysts leaned forward. And then came the shockwave. She beat Iga Swiatek, world number 2, 5-time Grand Slam champion, and one of the most dominant forces in women's tennis in straight sets. As a wild card, Eala recorded back-to-back top 10 victories over number 5 Keys and number 2 Swiatek in the same tournament. It was unprecedented for a Filipino player in WTA history and rare for anyone ranked outside the top 100 in recent memory. The stadium in Miami wasn't ready for what it was witnessing. Filipino fans who had traveled thousands of miles, some spending savings they probably shouldn't have touched, erupted in emotional celebrations that went viral within hours. Across the United States and back home in the Philippines, overseas workers, students, parents, and entire communities watched in disbelief and pride. What had started as a wild card appearance had turned into a statement to the entire tennis world. This was no Cinderella cameo. This was an arrival. Filipino workers across the United States watched on their phones during lunch breaks, in office hallways, and in living rooms at impossible hours of the night. Many of them were crying openly, unapologetically. When ESPN wrote that she carries the weight and support of an entire nation every time she steps onto the court, it had never felt more literal than it did during those electric days in Miami. Alexandra Eala eventually fell in the semifinals to Jessica Pegula after a grueling 3-set battle that lasted more than 2 hours. But by then, the scoreline barely mattered. The result was secondary. What truly mattered was what she had already proven to the world. At just 19 years old, a player from the Philippines had entered one of the sport's biggest tournaments as a wild card and defeated 2 of the most dominant players of her generation back-to-back. After her 2025 Miami Open breakthrough, she made history as the first Filipino to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal and the first to break into the WTA Top 100 rankings. It wasn't just a personal milestone, it was a national one. Somewhere, watching it all unfold, was Roger Federer. Officially retired since 2022, yet never truly absent from the sport, he remained a global ambassador and mentor figure, someone who understands greatness because he lived it for 2 decades. When he saw what Eala accomplished in Miami, he didn't issue a formal statement or orchestrate a grand announcement. He simply offered 8 words that ignited the internet: "She is the future of world tennis." From Federer, 8 words carry the weight of a lifetime's credibility. It was validation on the highest level. The tennis world erupted. Social media exploded. Headlines multiplied. But not everyone applauded. Some former players pushed back. Certain analysts questioned whether the praise had come too soon. And perhaps most surprising of all was Eala's own response, measured, grounded, and far from swept away by the noise. The reaction hadn't been this intense since Coco Gauff stunned the world at the Wimbledon Championships at just 15 years old by defeating Venus Williams. But this felt different. Because this wasn't only about a teenage prodigy shocking a legend, it was about a nation rising with her, and a global icon declaring that the future had already arrived. This was not simply a young player defeating a legend. This was one of the most respected figures in tennis history publicly anointing a potential successor. When Roger Federer declared that Alexandra Eala was the future of world tennis, it carried historic weight. Fan reaction reflected that impact. In one widely discussed poll, 79% of Talking Points fans selected Eala as their favorite over Coco Gauff, and 89% chose her over Emma Raducanu. Those numbers were extraordinary. They revealed how deeply invested the global tennis audience had already become in the young Filipino star and how Federer's endorsement intensified that momentum. However, immense praise inevitably invites intense scrutiny. The online debate that followed was immediate and, at times, fierce. Supporters pointed to the evidence: her breakthrough at the Miami Open, her steady climb up the rankings, and her historic milestones. On February 9, 2026, she reached a career-high WTA singles ranking of world number 40, becoming the highest-ranked Filipino player in tour history and the first from her country to break into the top 40. She had defeated multiple top 5 players, major champions, and reached a tour-level final in the Open era. By measurable standards, the rise was real. Yet skeptics raised valid concerns. One remarkable tournament run does not define a career. Conversations about all-time greatness require Grand Slam titles, usually multiple, and sustained excellence over years, not months. A closer look at Eala's Grand Slam results up to that point showed early exits, first-round losses, and qualifying setbacks. The gap between a spectacular WTA 1000 performance and consistent Grand Slam dominance is significant. It is, in fact, the precise gap where many promising careers plateau. When asked about Eala's rapid ascent during the 2025 Italian Open, Coco Gauff responded with thoughtfulness rather than rivalry. A journalist inquired whether Eala's surge in attention reminded her of her own early breakthrough. Gauff's answer was measured and generous, acknowledging that Eala appeared to be handling the spotlight with maturity and composure, an essential trait for anyone expected to carry both national hopes and global expectations. Coco Gauff noted that Alexandra Eala was handling the spotlight with remarkable composure for someone so young. Coming from a player who had personally experienced that level of global pressure as a teenager, the praise carried real weight. Still, the sudden scale of Eala's popularity seemed to catch parts of the Women's Tennis Association off guard. She was drawing massive crowds and generating viral attention, yet fans often expressed frustration when she was scheduled at odd hours or placed on smaller courts, as though she were still a mid-tier draw rather than one of the tour's fastest rising stars. That narrative began to shift in February 2026 in Dubai. Tournament organizers finally gave Alexandra Eala the premier center court spotlight, the final match slot of the day, the most coveted position in the schedule. She delivered. In Dubai, she defeated Jasmine Paolini, a top 10 player and two-time Grand Slam finalist, and then overcame Sorana Cîrstea. She advanced to the quarterfinals before falling to Gauff, but not before her ranking surged to a career-high world number 32, an extraordinary rise in less than a year. With each result, the debate over whether Roger Federer had spoken too soon grew quieter. Yet amid the headlines and viral moments, one central question persisted. Who exactly is Alex Eala, and can she handle what comes next? The statistics tell only part of the story. The fuller picture includes the losses, the chapters every great athlete must endure. For Eala, one of those chapters unfolded at the 2026 Australian Open, her first main draw appearance at that particular slam, and a moment Filipino fans had eagerly anticipated. It ended in heartbreak. After dominating the opening set 6-0, she ultimately fell in the first round to Alicia Parks, who was ranked number 99 at the time. Parks responded with raw power, firing 12 aces and overwhelming Eala with pace. The match revealed something important. Against opponents with big serves, whether elite contenders or lower-ranked power hitters, Eala cannot rely solely on her return game to dictate play. To consistently close out matches at the highest level, she will need greater variety and authority on her own serve, especially in momentum-shifting moments where a free point can steady nerves or seal a set. That is the honest evaluation. And it is precisely this space between brilliance and refinement that separates a very good player from a truly great one. The difference between a very good player and an all-time great often comes down to the smallest margins: the serve that earns free points under pressure, the ability to sustain first-set brilliance across 3 full sets, and the tactical evolution required when opponents study your patterns and adjust in real time. That gap was evident in Dubai, where Alexandra Eala fell heavily to Coco Gauff in the quarterfinals. After the loss, Eala said plainly, "There's still definitely a gap between me and Coco." The quote stood out not as an admission of defeat, but as a sign of rare self-awareness. In an era shaped by curated social media personas and polished soundbites, a 20-year-old openly acknowledging the distance between herself and one of the world's best players revealed maturity beyond her years. That kind of clarity was long associated with Roger Federer himself. Not arrogance, but awareness, the ability to see your game honestly, recognize the work ahead, and return to training without excuses. Analysts have been clear about what comes next. To climb higher, Eala must strengthen her serve to secure more free points, adapt her game more fluidly across surfaces, and bring greater tactical variety to pressure moments. Like many aggressive baseliners, she can be challenged by counterpunchers and retrievers, particularly on clay, where patience and point construction are paramount. These are not fatal flaws, they are developmental steps. Every legend once stood in this same space. Serena Williams had gaps at 20. Federer had gaps at 20. The real question is never whether imperfections exist, it is whether the athlete has the character to close them. That is what gives Federer's words such depth. When he said she is the future of world tennis, he was not declaring her finished product. He was identifying a combination talent, resilience, hunger that historically produces champions. After 2 decades at the Sports Summit, he understands what that reflection looks like. And in Eala, he recognized it. There was a quieter moment that revealed even more about who she is. In a modest interview room, after one of the most emotionally demanding weeks of her career, Eala was asked what Federer meant to her. Her answer was simple and telling. She admired his grace on and off the court, his composure, and the way he carried himself over the years. Those are not the words of someone obsessed solely with trophies. They are the words of someone who understands that greatness is measured as much by conduct as by championships. She added another reflection, one that showed perspective beyond her age. Federer's retirement, she said, reminded her that even the greatest athletes are human. They blaze trails, inspire generations, and yet eventually step away. That awareness matters. It suggests she is not intoxicated by hype or applause. She understands that the window of greatness is finite and that every training session, every early morning practice, every difficult loss is part of building something lasting. With every Grand Slam main draw appearance and every upset victory, belief grows in the Philippines that its athletes belong at tennis's highest level. That burden is unique. Federer represented Switzerland, a nation already established in the sport. Eala is constructing that platform for her country almost from the ground up. She is not just chasing titles, she is expanding possibility. And that may be the heaviest and most powerful responsibility of all. A Filipino worker in Abu Dhabi put it simply. Since the Pacquiao era, no Filipino athlete has captured the nation's collective spirit in the same way Alex Eala has. The comparison to Manny Pacquiao, one of the most beloved figures in Philippine sports history, speaks volumes about the scale of what Alexandra Eala has already become at just 20 years old. And she has not even won a Grand Slam title yet. Let that sink in. The pride, joy, and sense of global belonging she has given to a nation of more than 100 million people have arrived before the sport's ultimate prize. So what happens if and when she lifts a major trophy? If Roger Federer's 8 words shook the tennis world, that moment would shake it even harder. This is the stage of the journey where the conversation shifts from rankings and breakthrough runs to something deeper. Legacy. Eala's rise is not just about match results. It is about what happens when talent meets courage, sacrifice, and an unshakable belief that you belong on stages your country has rarely occupied before. Federer's statement was more than praise, it was recognition. It signaled that what millions of Filipino fans have believed for years is no longer a local dream but a global reality. The real question now is not whether she is already the greatest Filipino tennis player in history, many would argue she is on that path, but whether she can transcend even that and enter the conversation as one of the greatest women the sport has ever seen. Is the trajectory sustainable? Will the serve improve? Will the Grand Slam results catch up to the hype? Or is the spotlight moving faster than the milestones? The courts of 2026 and beyond will ultimately decide. But at this moment, one of the most accomplished players the sport has ever known has already cast his vote. And for now, that belief carries extraordinary weight.